Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce Mark Morris and his team here. And a year or so ago, I ran into Mark somewhere, and he said he was going to be looking at hawks up at Adams Farm. And I was able to get up there at least once or twice and check things out. It was good to get fish crows and some other things up there. But they're going to talk about that, and they're going to talk about their whole idea of watching migrating hawks, through the spring, and how we can all participate moving ahead. So without further ado, here's Mark Morris.
Thank you very much, David. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I'm here with, I represent Eastern Mass Hawkwatch along with two other members, Eric Miller, who's also the site coordinator, our excellent site coordinator at Wachusett Mountain, and another great observer, Chris Eddy. So we're all gonna, each of us take a turn at, understanding raptor behavior and the differences in the spring and fall and so forth and so on. But like David had said, we were trailblazers last year and trying to find a new spring site. Our regular spring site is in Plum Island, and under the tutelage of our founder, Paul Roberts, he suggested that we see if we can find another site. So I said, Paul, I've got a site in mind. So I went to the owners the next day, and I got permission to conduct Hawkwatch there. Under the conditions that would be very respectful and patronize the store and do whatever they want to do as far as parking and so on and so forth. But their family was very receptive to that because they're wildlife people in general. So especially the grandmother loves birds. So I think that's what got me. Yeah. So I'm going to veer off a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of hawk watching, and I'll try not to get bogged down by that. But because of recent events a couple of weeks ago, I'll find myself arriving at the point that I'm trying to make here. So we haven't treated raptors very well in this country for quite some time. In the late 1800s, the early 1900s, they were shot for sport, basically. So people knew about where these good hawkwatch sites are, but they'd go up there with a vest and 2 bags full of shotgun shells, and they just blaze away. Just like shooting skeet. So then came the Migratory Bird Act of 1918, and then it became illegal, but it still went on. And luckily, in 1934, Rosalie Edge recognized the inherent beauty of these powerful birds and founded the Hawk Mountain Sanctuary. So this was the, I don't know if it was a first step, it was a step in the right direction toward conservation. So other sites like Duluth, like Cape May popped up, and the only problem with that was there was no coordinated way to amass the data. It was all pretty much everybody doing their own thing. But in the 1950s, we also had another problem called DDT. And I looked this up today. In the 1950s, I'll read this out from Scientific American. Hailed as a miracle in the 1950s, the potent bug killer DDT promised freedom from malaria, typhus, and other insect-borne diseases. Manufacturers promoted it as a benefactor of all humanity in advertisements that declared DDT is good for me. Americans sprayed more than 1.35 billion tons of the insecticide, nearly 7.5 pounds per person, on crops, lawns, pets, and in their homes before biologists, Rachel Carson, and others sounded the alarm about its impacts on humans and wildlife. Yes, humans, and it's still being circulated in fat tissues of humans and animals today. So the fledgling United States Environmental Protection Agency banned it, DTT, in 1972. Thank God. The 60s were known as the silent decade. Where are all our eagles, ospreys, disappearing, peregrine falcons? You know, basically in the 70s, that's when I started birding. You know, I got a picture there. I showed David a pine siskin eaten out of my hand at my finger, you know. But back then we had Sharpies coming, but you couldn't find the Cooper's hawk, not like it is today. So thankfully, like, and red shoulders was, you know, hard to come by. You know, so now that led to the awareness of where these raptors going, why, and put such pressure, and people cared. Good, it's a good thing that people cared where they were going. So in 1974, there was a meeting in Syracuse, New York, and that was 300 field scientists, ornithologists, conservationists got together and formed a MANA, the Hawk Migration Association of North America. Coincidentally, our group also started in 1974. And the founder, Paul Roberts, was instrumental in that. And he was named vice chairman of Hamana in 1978 and second chairman in 1980. I was hoping to have Paul here so much today, but he's on assignment in Costa Rica. So that's okay. He's out there with his wife, and I know he wanted to be here too. So
Athol, Costa Rica.
yeah.
Even going to Costa Rica.
So this brings me to my next trouble spot here. And I don't know if any of you were here this summer with Tom Riccardi's excellent presentation of his raptors. He had talked about what? He talked about rat poisoning, right? So I copied, did 10 copies of this article that Paul Roberts did in 2020 called Eagle Wars for Mass Wildlife. Excellent article. So I don't know if you saw it in the news. There was an eagle that died, picked up in the cemetery in Arlington. The eagle that died was MK in this article. So after 2 days, it couldn't recover. So we still haven't learned yet. So I don't know what the solution is on the urban rat problem, but I hope it's not poison. Because what happens when MK eats the rat? Something's going to eat the eagle, right? Where does it stop? You know, there's got to be a better way. So now that I've got that out of the way, anybody that wants one of these, feel free. We'll also give you the link for it. If I can get my tech guy to help me with that. So,
on the package that is solution for
yeah. Yeah, what I was talking over on the way over is the urban rat is tough. There's no barred owls there because they need more than a food source, you know. And the red tails will be in there, but you know, they're eating the poison. It's the same deal, you know. So it's, I don't know what the solution is, but headed down the wrong road again, basically.
I know Hawkins trying to pass legislation, has been working really hard.
Yeah.
I made several calls.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so when does the spring migration start? It started already. March 1st, I had the first TV, and I'm not looking for them. They just came over my house. Monday, I had another one. Today, I had one going to the grocery store. So the thing with the spring or both migrations is in the spring, you got the Swainson's hawk are going, is our western version of the Broadwing, and they're going to the Pacific Northwest, and they'll do a massive migration to Argentina. It's really incredible. And the Broadwings are going to Northwest South America, Colombia. So all because you got these large body of waters, the Great Lakes, the hawks won't migrate over water because they're not getting thermals from the earth. They need thermals to live. So they will not cross here. You know, warblers and other stuff will, but that's why these main Duluth, Braddock Bay, Derby Hill, all these hawks are coming up in the coastline. You've got passerines coming up as well on the coastline. And the hawks need some to eat, so they're following the passerines too. But once they hit the Great Lakes, they're coming by. That's why the Braddock Bay and Derby Hill are really popular. But if you look, where are we? Adams Farm? We're right in between Provincetown, Plum Island, Derby Hill, and Braddock Bay. And there's no more Mount Tom, so nobody's getting any data coming up through this whole center. So the hawks that want to go north, southwest and northeast, coming up in here, in Canada, and all points, New England, etc. So the morning sun hitting the Earth's surface. Called 9. I mean, when we're doing hawk watching, it's gentleman's hours. You know, it's 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock generally, because any hawks you see 6 o'clock in the morning, they're probably hunting. You know, and I told you about they need to lift, but they also want the favorable winds as well. You got the thermals in the morning, and you hope you get in the spring you get a southwest wind. Just the opposite. In the fall, they want some kind of northerly wind. They want a free ride home, wherever they're going, back and forth. They want a free ride. And you'll see that, many times at Adams Farm last year. And I love it. The Broadwings are just cupped, just not even, not even a feather rippling. So I love that. And that's why normally the spring migration, it's a broader front. You know, you get multiple birds, but not nearly the numbers, the giant kettles that you get in the fall, which makes the fall participation more favorable, because people love, and I do too. People love those big kettles coming over, and but favorable conditions. And I talked with David about that. He's had like 20 at a time. Normally it's onesie twosies, and then you get 3 more, and so on and so forth. Species breakdown. Okay, and right now, what's coming through is usually the rule of thumb is the larger birds want to get up here first. They got more to do. They got to get, like they all do, but you got to establish territories. So like I said, I've seen turkey vultures already. Eagles are on the move. The eagles got eggs probably. And so they got to get up there. They got to establish their territory, fight. They fight for everything. You have other adults that want to move in on their chick or their dude. And they're going to fight all that. They've got to do nesting responsibilities, raising the fledgling, and it's a long time. So that's why they got to do it first. So that's March. At the end of March, you're going to get ospreys, you're going to get harriers that are moving. Harriers mostly on the coast. And we had some, I think we had some ospreys at Adams Farm. And that's another bird's, it's mostly singles on those. So that's the end of March. April brings the ospreys. Oh, March. March is also red tails. and red shoulders as well. So you get the red shoulder movement, and you don't, and heavies and red tails are tricky to count on migrating. You really got to pay attention and watch them go, because sometimes the same bird you just counted is coming back this way because they're just hanging out, you know. Same thing with the red tail. Adams Farm, we got the red tails there. They get up and if they're kiting, which is unique, pretty unique to red tails. If they're kiting, they're not migrating. You know, you'll see them when they're high and they're going. That's a migrant. You know, when they're hanging out hunting, it's local. And I tell Eric and Chris, the migrating birds are silent. If you hear a broadwing, I tell them vocal is local. The same thing when they show up in my yard. You know, I live with my awesome wife Julie on the shores of Wrights Reservoir. We have 27 acres there, so basically I've turned it into a sanctuary. But it's always exciting, like around April 20th when I get our broadwings back, and they're just so vocal and flying around, and they're just so pumped to be back. So it's really cool. So okay, April now. April, ospreys, some red tails, and you're gonna get these sipiters, Cooper's hawk, sharpies. Mid-April here, we had our first broadwing at Adams Farm, April 10th, I believe, 10th or 11th. And then they started coming in droves, and they were our number one producer of numbers, obviously. And those are mostly adults coming in. They're coming up, and they're adults. They want to get to their place. And the falcons, see the falcons coming in. The kestrels. We didn't get a lot of falcons there, but we got all three. So kestrels on the coast, much more so on the coast. They get a lot of kestrels in sharpies at Plum Island. And we got a couple of Merlin last year. Merlin, you got to be on your toes because sometimes you get 2 seconds and they're by you. See you later. Same thing on Plum Island. So May early, we still get the broadwings, the adults, and but it starts slowing down in May, and but you also get good Sharpie flights. And they had record flights May 2nd a couple of years ago at Plum Island, and it just depends if the conditions, the southwest wind comes up, and the birds really, I tell everybody, they dictate the show. I mean, you know, there's so many times when we see 1 or 2 birds, and then 4 hours later you got 3,000. So it's they control, you know. So May and June you're going to get immature birds moving up, and they're drifting. They may be migrating. They may be going back to where they were born, but they have no nesting responsibilities. So they're kind of wandering along, and that's pretty much it on the mechanics of it. Is the heating of the earth, getting the free ride, and the species of you understand when the species are going to arrive. So it's a good thing to know. But now that I've said all that, I want to bring up another member, a good friend of mine, Chris Eddy, who's going to talk maybe a day in the life of after all those things that happened. She's either up on the tower or Adams Farm, and talk about what it's like to be an observer. Let's say it's either April 15th with a southwest wind or September 15th in a northwest, brisk northwest wind, and describe what it's like as an observer and what goes down, what goes into that. Chris?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Eddy. Thank you, Mark. That was great. I was looking forward to hearing you speak because I always learn so much from my fellow birders. I want to say that I think what I have in common with the Athol Bird and Nature Club is just the love for nature and conservation. And I'm really happy to be here tonight. I definitely have an affinity toward our feathered friends. And that started when I was young. looking out a window. I was probably about 10 years old and saw a bird sitting in a very tall oak tree, thinking it was a prehistoric bird. I rustled down to the library, the public library, and learned that it was a great blue heron. But that pretty much started me off, and I've been a looker ever since. Then life happened, family, kids, responsibilities. Now I'm an empty nester, no pun intended. But I had the opportunity for the past 5 years to get back out there and see what was happening in the air. I knew that Mount Wachusett was a migratory path for raptors, and so I took a stroll and met a man by the name of Rod Chase. Rod is an amazing man. I was so privileged to meet him. He became my mentor. And like many of the birders up there, just always so helpful, compassionate, kind, and eager to teach anyone that comes, young, old, anyone is welcome to gather all the information they have. It's just such a joy to do that and pass it along. And that's what Rod was for me. He taught me how to watch, which who knew there was technical ways to do this, technical ways to use your binoculars. I would always have my arms up and he would push them down constantly, like saving me from later neck and back pain. And I still pass that along to new birders that I see that are very grateful for the tip. His skill and knowledge just was unbelievable. And I was just very lucky, very, very lucky to have met him. He was pleasantly surprised when he saw that I had a 10 by 50 pair of binoculars. He was like, let me see those. And he was like, oh yeah, those are good. Those are good. And also really eager to teach me how to spot. So birders that really know birds and are really knowledgeable about it really love spotters, because they need a lot of eyes on the mountain to see all the dots that are floating around in order to identify them and then to collect the data. And he taught me how to do that using the horizon as a focal point, so that your binoculars can rest on the horizon and you can scan the area constantly looking, and you have a focal point and also a place that you can share with other birders to identify where the bird is that you've spotted. Which of course is a very helpful thing, especially when you're a beginner, you don't really know much about birds, or you see, you know, what I lovingly call a dot and you have no idea. But so everyone on the mountain helps you do that. And it's kind of like a family in that way. I don't know, it was maybe the first couple of weeks I was going up there almost every day. And on my ride up there one day, I sheepishly told him that I was feeling like excitement, like as if I was a little kid getting ready to go on a roller coaster ride. And I said, is this like normal? Like, I am so excited every day to come up here. And he said, I said, when is this going to end? And he said, never. And he was right. Yeah. It doesn't end. I'm excited every time I go out. So getting back to spotting, he taught me how to use the terrain and the landmarks, clouds, to help other spotters locate what I was spotting. And for identification, he shared a chart with me, which I brought with me. I'll just hold it up. It's a guide from the Northeast Hawkwatch. Can anybody see that? There you go. It's a guide from the Northeast Hawkwatch. I didn't print them off because you're not allowed to do that. But this is an excellent beginner way to identify raptors. It categorizes them into falcons, accipiters, buteos, and eagles, vultures. Did I miss something? Eagles and vultures. But anyway, I highly recommend you can go online. I have them up front, so anybody could get that, and maybe our tech person can also share that. But that was an amazing piece of information for me to have, because again, when a bird is in flight like that, it's very hard to determine what it could possibly be, and having that as a visual was really helpful. And I've shared that with tons of people that come up there, and everyone's really excited about it. So the silhouettes really help out a lot in identifying. And once I could spot, and then I was also able to track the bird and share it with everyone else on the mountain, the next thing to do was to determine what the species was. So basically, that's going to be a lifetime effort for me and many others, but one that I thoroughly enjoy. And I have a lot of friends, 2 of them that are here right now, my bird buds, who help me and continue to help me learn how to do that. But determining species, I found that pretty quickly that it was really key to identify, especially at a distance, which is virtually impossible to do. You need to look at flight pattern. And I never thought I'd get there, but slowly I am getting to the point where I'm familiar with some of the more common flight patterns of our raptors. And it's really nice to be able to call them out instead of listening to everyone else do that with some accuracy. But it does take time. And but it isn't as hard as you think. You just have to put the time into it. Anyway, I also wanted to mention that women have 180-degree peripheral vision, which I think is 80 degrees more than males. So we need women up there. So I'll put my plug in for women to come up and join us wherever they can and whenever they can. Yep. And one of the great things about the female observers too is that when you're up on the mountain and a woman is walking towards the mountain and everyone's like, oh my God, she's here, thank goodness, because no one has spotted anything all day. And then this person gets there with these amazing laser eyes and they're spotting out dots left and right. So everyone loves a great spotter, and women are very good spotters. So please come and join us for that. So I've gotten to know many of the visitors, all generally enthusiastic in educating anyone that wants to share in the joy of birding and data collection of raptors. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that that participation of tracking the population trends is really critical to our environment. So I'm really happy to be a part of that as well. Anyway, thank you for taking the time tonight. And I am going to introduce our next speaker, which is Eric Miller. And he is our official bird counter at the mountain at Mount Wachusett. And I'll let him continue. Thank you.
Sure, yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Miller. And I started seriously bird watching only about 4 years ago. September 2019. I had been up to Wachusett Mountain a number of times, just like the view up there. So I brought my binoculars with me, and all of a sudden I see all these people up there with these telescopes and the binoculars and stuff like that. And I don't know, what are they doing? So this short little guy with a very long beard named Rod immediately came over, just like Chris talked about, immediately came over and started talking. And he loves to talk to people. And that's one thing, like Chris says, that you'll find out with hawk watchers, is that we're a very gregarious bunch in general, and we like to talk about things and we like to share our knowledge. Rod was very welcoming and said, hey, this is pretty cool. So I came back the next day, came back the day after that, skipped a day or two because it was a little rainy, and then came back again, saw my first broadwing kettle and was amazed and got hooked. And I was there most days until the end of October. Fast forward 2 years, I am now the site coordinator. Rod has had some health issues and didn't want to deal with all the reporting and stuff like that. And I'm kind of a numbers guy, so I figured, hey, what the heck? I'll be glad to help out. So many of you can probably identify more birds than I can, but I'm here to count them and make sure that gets done correctly. As Chris said, it's important. The whole purpose of this is to track the populations, track the migrations, find out when they're moving, under what conditions they're moving. The numbers, are we seeing populations go up? Are we seeing populations go down? And the importance was the friends here at Humana have given us a platform to put all that data into one place and to share it with ornithologists and biologists and other, and the general public. And to make that work, we need data. And we have this big hole in the middle of Massachusetts or inland in New England, and we've lost so many sites over the years, and we're really looking to bring them back because we think that's important data to gather. So let me just share some stuff here. And David, where am I going to get it? Just need a browser here.
See a top of this file, maybe? Top row. Like this. Okay. Yeah, you're gonna go to. This is good. That's great.
Sorry about this. What's that?
Yeah. Top left.
Okay.
Go to school.
No.
Share the screen. How you get to that screen?
I'm going to
Might
share
be
a
able to-
screen, but the question is what we're going to share here.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Actually, if you put a screen in that, that'll work. You just,
Well, that's the current screen.
Yeah.
How about the bottom one, actually?
Here, why don't you
Yeah.
navigate here?
All right, we take
My
a little,
apologies, folks.
technical stuff here. We're gonna try to see if we can't find how to do our screen here. Let's see. It's not really what I'm looking for, but.
So a short video.
Okay, well, that's Teams. Here's all the stuff.
This is Adams.
This
is Need to hide that. I want to hide that little bar really up top.
It's a large group. Find thermal.
Okay.
Okay, well, I can, oh, Microsoft.
Then what they'll do is they'll get.
Yeah, we're gonna,
Like, you know, oh, peel off, so they'll all peel off. And
All right,
they'll
then we
find
can-
another spot.
so we'll have to go back to and actually view the,
Back down. All three.
this your shared screen.
Yeah.
thing again. So you can play with that for a minute.
Yeah,
Whoops.
so it's gonna be here.
Will be the.
All right, now hopefully everybody can see that. So this is the home screen for what's called hawkcount.org. And this is where the Hawk Watch sites report daily. And you can see we've already got things being posted here. Things down as far as Panama and Costa Rica and Colombia. And you can see right here that we're really starting to get some stuff moving here. There's 18,000 turkey vultures coming through Costa Rica right at the moment, along with some Swainson's hawks. They've started moving. Some of the broadwing hawks have started coming up from below. They get a lot of different birds than what we see here, the hook-billed kites and the Pontius kites. We see the Mississippis every once in a while.
You need to click your screen sharing is paused. Yeah, so
Oh.
right up at the top is 3 hours. Now just minimize the team. There you go.
All right.
Well, it's still not working.
I'm gonna share this, share.
Then screen.
Click on it.
Follow the
Bottom
button.
of the left.
Say again?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
All right, now we're going. My apologies, folks. All right. So as I was saying, we've got sites all through the US, mostly the Eastern Coast, down through Colombia, Costa Rica. Thousands and thousands of turkey vultures on their way, coming up our way. And we've got things even closer to home. Our friends at Derby Hill Observatory just happened to have a really nice day the other day. Let's see if we can find them. And they only had 2 birds that day, but one was a rough-legged hawk and the other was a gyrfalcon, which is pretty amazing. The other thing, other than seeing just how other sites are doing, you can drill down on them, and let's say, again, let's look at Derby Hill, and you can look at the latest month and see the totals of what's going on. It shows you the daily reports all in one place. And the other fun stuff is to hit the spring totals, and this will take a little time to calculate. Make sure we got it. There we go. And this site actually started back around 2001, but a lot of the sites keep very detailed reports, and they've been able to put the old data back in there. Let's just see if we can get data out of the way here. And you can see a lot of variation over time with the sites. So much of what we do is weather oriented. We've had some interesting years up at Wachusett Mountain. Last year we had an insanely good year. The weather really held out for us. 2 years before that, we had a lot of fog right in the middle of the broadwing season, which tends to run from about September 15th through the end of September. And all that fog only extended to southern New Hampshire. So the birds that were coming down from the north were seeing that, and they went around and they came down through the Connecticut River Valley rather than through them. And the folks at Putney Mountain had a record year, and we got probably 70% of what we normally do. Last year, we got lucky. The crummy weather in the middle of the season went all the way up through Vermont, blockaded everybody, and then it disappeared, and we had just a torrent of birds come down through us. And we average about 9,500 birds a year, and we had over 21,000 this past year. So the weather plays a huge, makes a huge difference for us. And that's with the variation that you'll see here, even from year to year. The other thing that really helps out with gathering the data is, everybody likes to see what their site has done. They like to compare it against other people, or just see what the trends are year over year. But these guys have gone through and created what they call the Raptor Population Index. Now, this only covers sites that have reported their data in a specific way, and that the big thing is hour by hour breakdowns. And it's really easy to do with the report forms that we have, but it's just a matter of taking the time to put it in at the end of the day, rather than just putting everything together. So even Wachusett Mountain right now is not included in this data because they didn't start doing it hour by hour until about 6 or 7 years ago, and they want 10 years of data before they do it. But what they will do is come up and take the data and put it into the assessments. And this is stuff that any of you can see. You can just go to hawkcount.org and it's all right there. And so here are all the birds that there are currently have sufficient data on. So if we look at something like the Cooper's hawk, here is a breakdown. They've taken not all these dots and these arrows are the actual recording sites. What you see here in the colors, those are Christmas bird counts. So down here, they're talking about for the Cooper's hawk, the winter CBC, what you see here in green, they're seeing birds increasing. Pink is decreasing, and we're not seeing any decreases, which is nice, and gray is stable. And this is the fall hawkwatch thing, and you can see in certain areas, reports are down, others are stable. And there you start thinking about, okay, how much of this is, say in the Northeast where you've got decreasing numbers of birds coming through, is it because the birds are going away, or are the birds staying around, hence the improvement in the CBC counts? So it's all stuff that they're looking at through this. Is there any particular species that you want to take a look at?
Peregrine.
Sure. Move down. And here we go. Again, improving both in the CBC and in a number of places. Especially those are the spring sites there, and stable all across here. The really interesting data when you look at both the static, the CBC, and the migration report. The other thing that we can take a look at, move back a bit, is what they call trend results. Okay, so what they've done here is that you can go to individual sites. So let's say, let's go take a look at Pac-Monadnock. And take a look at our friends the Baldy. Look at this. Here we go. And here it is from 2006 through 2019, which is the latest consolidation of the data that they've done. And a nice upward trend. That's something we obviously want to see. We can take a look at, let's say, Sharpies. And there, again, this you can see from here, from the variations from year to year, a lot of that is going to be weather related. Again, if you have a bad weather year or they just happen to move in a certain direction, you're going to get high numbers or low numbers. But here you can see an overall trend downward. And that's been what other bird watchers have been noticing too. Just in terms of looking at the actual chart here, what they're showing here is number of observations per hour of observation time. And that will vary according to the species. So if we take a look at something like the broadwing hawk, now here it's all over the place. It's up, it's down, it's back and forth. But you can see, you're seeing overall 8 to 10 per hour of viewing time on average, and that includes all the down times and the up times with the broadwing hawks. When they come through, they tend to come through in a mass in a fairly short period of time. So this is how the data is being used, and how it's something that you can access yourself. So what we're hoping, again, is that we think this is a really good data spot. In fact, let's see if we can get out of here. Let's look at where are the files that we downloaded.
Right there.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Actually, it was on the desktop. Okay. Click on the desktop icon, up there, right where. Click on that.
There we go. All right. So what we have been doing, we came up here 10 days spread out from about April, I'm sorry, when was it, Mark? From April 3rd or so?
Yes,
Through about March or May 5th, 8th, something through there.
thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah, actually May 5th, this is the last one. And this is the report that I was actually filing on MassBird, just so everybody could see it.
The black vulture, actually, we counted 2 migrating, but we also had a cattle, what was it? 11?
11 or 12 on one day.
That
Come
was drifted
through.
west.
And-
We couldn't count 'em.
Yeah. And that's where the count becomes as much art as it is science. It's trying to determine, as Mark was saying, what birds are actually moving through. Now, these birds all came through in one big mass. We're swirling around a little bit north of here and then just sort of settled down. We came in a couple of days later, never saw them again. So do you call them migrants or did they just disperse in the area? That's the kind of stuff we're sort of in between whether they're migrating or local. But from just 10 days of observation, we had 403 birds that we identified as migrating. And that's not too darn bad. We think that with better observation time and more consistent observation time, we can really get an idea. We can really get an idea of what's going on. And that's the other thing we're looking for is we're reporting weather conditions as well. We want to find out, what's the best conditions for them to move. What direction are they coming from? Things like that. All of which is useful information for the ornithologists and the like.
All that's recorded hourly on a field recording sheet.
Right. So
We have Adam's currently have an easy solution. It's Orange Airport. Google that, and they'll give you that.
Yep.
Without throwing grass in the air and all that other stuff.
Now, for people who are just interested in other birds, these are birds that we saw that one day up at Adams Farm. So we've got local bald eagles, coops, red shoulders, a couple of local broadwings, things like that. Had a great blue heron fly by, flickers, all kinds of woodpeckers. So it's an interesting combination up there. You get some good bird watching in just besides watching the hawks. And here is our field recording sheet. Now, obviously, penmanship is not a requirement for good hawk watching. We have our own little shorthand. The command uses 2-letter acronyms for the birds rather than the official 4-letter things, but whatever will get it down. So we will keep track of this. And as I say, we don't need everybody to be experienced bird watchers. We just need people who have good eyesight and are willing to look through binoculars and tell the other people when they see something. People who are spotters are just as important as the people who can identify stuff. The 3 people who set it up are Mark to start with, myself, and Chris. We need help. We need, we're all experienced bird watchers at this point. We can usually identify what's going on, but to have other people help out to make sure that we're not missing birds going by. As I say, if we get a spotter to say, hey, there's a bird over here, whoever's there who is a good observer can take a look at it, see what's going on.
When do you
6.
need the help?
It's a big sky though over there.
Yeah.
It's the same as on the mountain. It's a lot of sky to cover. And the more eyes, the better. And sometimes we'll get an announcement that I've got a bird over here. And then we get eyes over there. And we don't want to miss somebody coming in the back door. This is because that's where the more eyes, like you get somebody focused in, so other people can scan the other areas, not miss anything. Because you can miss birds.
So anyway, the data is collected. The data goes to an interesting place, and becomes available quite quickly. The trends obviously take some time to develop and things like that, but we think it's important work, and we'd like to ask for your help. Yes.
When do you want help?
Well, when are we starting, Mark?
March 20th to May 7th,
Okay.
right up there. Weather contingent always. We're not gonna ask people to sit in the rainstorm, because the birds aren't, they're not flying.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. They only fly in decent weather?
In general,
Yeah.
And again, we're not looking to put people out in massive rainstorms and things like that to catch one bird, but yeah.
The difference in the spring is, all they can do down in the spring, yeah, they take it up down territory. Get going. You know, so, but, pretty much rule of thumb, is they're not gonna go.
So we're typically there. Mark likes to start a little bit early, but again, from anywhere from 8:30 or so till 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And if you can only spend a few hours, that's fine. We're more than happy to have you come up. The only thing that we ask is that if it turns out that a bunch of you are going to be coming up all at once, to give us a heads up. So the parking is a little bit limited up there, and we don't want to put a strain on the business. But we can probably carpool from down below, something on that order. So
We can put contact information on that yellow pad there. We didn't prepare that.
Yeah,
So
if
you
would
can take a
email me-
picture on it?
You would email me that, you can add that.
Okay.
Or thing
Even better.
to everybody that signed up online and.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Even better.
Give me
Sorry.
the links and the email contacts. We have one person already getting on this, one of the questions, which he wants to participate.
Okay.
So, after her, gather, her info.
Okay.
If anyone's interested tonight, I do have some sheet. Let's give us your information. I can send you one when we're there. Come up and say, come out. What is it?
and so if you have any questions, you can talk to David, and he'll forward information to us. If you look on the Hawkwatch site again, hawkcount.org, and look under Wachusett Mountain, and look under the site information, you'll find my name and my email address there, so you can contact me that way as well. Yes, yes.
I'm a pedestrian in a room of marathons. Bear with me.
No, I wouldn't.
But hawks around my house all year.
Yep.
So are there like 2 residences? I mean, there's like the people that go to Miami every year, the rest of us that have to stay here for the.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's like Coopers. I've got 2, an adult coop and an immature coop hunting my feeders all winter. So they're not one of the migrants. So, some species, you'll get some, some or most of migrants, some will hang out, red tails. They're pretty much year round, but they'll, fluctuate a little bit.
Are they migrating in a more regional way or not?
No, we do. And we count them, if they're going north, migration type pattern. Same bald eagles. Those are the birds that are top,
But they'd be nesting way further north.
yeah, right.
Rather than nesting here, they put you on here.
Yeah.
But in your neighborhood, I know you have red tails, I know you have Coopers. Right. And usually with red shoulders hang around in that area. So I haven't seen them with most winters there. Certainly groups and red tails are pretty.
Yep. A lot of it has to do obviously with food supply. If they can't find the food, they're going to move. We certainly have plenty of red-tailed hawks moving. We have plenty of bald eagles moving, things like that. But there are still some of them that will stay around all year round.
Because last year, we had either a bowl or not.
Yeah.
I got the snow in the backyard.
I was
Oh,
calling,
not with this feathers in the.
yeah, what was celebrated, and no. Who, I named them pillows, there's on the piles of feathers.
Anyway, David, if, do you want to take?
Yeah,
Take
no,
back
I
over
think
again?
I think,
And we have, just a minute, we've got, I brought in 3 books here, excellent books, if you want to take a look.
Yeah,
Peter Dunn,
we'll pull it right up here.
and Rory, Peter Dunn and Sibley.
This is Hawks in Flight by David Sibley and Pete Dunn by Sutton. That's a good one. Hawks at a Distance by Jerry Ligori, the late lamented Jerry Ligori. And Hawks from Every Angle, again, Jerry Ligori. And I think I left one before.
Here.
Oh, thank you.
I think that's Wheeler.
Yeah, and this is Wheeler's Birds of Prey of the East. This one gets into some really serious detail about mold patterns and things like that. So if you really want to sit down and take a look at birds, obviously when they're flying by at high speed, it's a little tough to tell sometimes what's going on.
And I think you can get all these on Amazon. If I'm not
Oh, yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah, and local bird sites,
Yeah.
the Audubon sites. Support your local folks.